It is a common trope in storytelling, a foretelling of events. Sometimes they're quite clear. Other times they're more open to interpretation. Throughout Tolkien, we find a surprising number of prophecies made by characters both great and small, immortal and mortal. And as always, Tolkien would weave them into the fabric of Middle-earth with expert care and a richness of story. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the Prophecies of Middle-earth. While no doubt most will immediately think of the great prophecies like those of Mandos, the doomsman of the Valar, the first published instances of prophecy actually come in Tolkien's first Middle-earth book, 1937's The Hobbit. There, as the company of Thorin Oakenshield rests in Rivendell, Elrond reads the moon letters written on Thror's map. Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, and the setting sun with the last light of Durin's day will shine upon the keyhole. This prophecy would be fulfilled when Bilbo and the dwarves come to the Lonely Mountain. There, Bilbo notices a large thrush which has caught a snail and begins knocking it on the stone. As Bilbo calls the dwarves to him, a last beam of light from the sun shines upon the keyhole. Shortly before this, when they had arrived in Laketown, we hear another prophecy about the return of dwarves to Erebor, which is far less ominous than its depiction in the films. The king beneath the mountains, the king of carven stone, the lord of silver fountains, shall come into his own. His crown shall be upholden, his harp shall be restrung, his halls shall echo golden, to songs of yore resung. The woods shall wave on mountains, and grass beneath the sun. His wealth shall flow in fountains, and the rivers golden run. The streams shall run in gladness, the lakes shall shine and burn. All sorrow fail and sadness at the Mountain King's return. As with the thrush and the keyhole, this prophecy would likewise prove true. Erebor is re-established and prosperity would return not only to the dwarves, but the men of Dale as well. Bilbo would hear of these glad tidings from Gandalf and Balin when they visit him years after their adventure. In response, Bilbo references this very prophecy. "Then the prophecies of the old songs have turned out to be true after a fashion," said Bilbo. "Of course," said Gandalf. "And why should not they prove true? Surely you don't disbelieve the prophecies because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself. You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck, just for your sole benefit? You are a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I am very fond of you. But you are only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all." And indeed, the wide world of prophecies in Middle-earth would only just be getting started with those found in The Hobbit. In The Lord of the Rings, we find even more examples of prophecy and foresight. One of the most obvious examples is about Aragorn and his path. After the victory of the Rohirrim over Saruman, Aragorn is joined by the Grey Company, who bring a reminder from Elrond. This reminder leads Aragorn to recount the words of Malbeth the Seer, spoken over 1,000 years prior, foretelling Aragorn's path. "Over the land there lies a long shadow, westward reaching wings of darkness. The tower trembles. To the tombs of kings doom approaches, the dead awaken. For the hour is come for the oath breakers. At the stone of Erech they shall stand again, and hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Whose shall the horn be? Who shall call them? From the grey twilight, the forgotten people, the heir of him to whom the oath they swore. From the north shall he come, need shall drive him. He shall pass the door to the paths of the dead." Malbeth, who lived during some of the final years of the northern kingdom of Arnor, would be known for another prophecy much closer to his own time. When Arafant, king of the splinter kingdom of Arthedain, has a son in 1864 of the Third Age, Malbeth declares, Arvedui you shall call him, for he will be last in Arthedain, though a choice will come to the Dunedain, and if they take the one that seems less hopeful, then your son will change his name and become king of a great realm. If not, then much sorrow and many lives of men shall pass, until the Dunedain arise and are united again. This prophecy is unique in that it predicts the two possible outcomes, not just for Arvedui, but for the very fates of Arnor and Gondor. While there's some ambiguity here, this prophecy most likely centers around the decision of Gondor on whether or not to take Arvedui as its king. For in 1944, King Ondoher of Gondor and his sons were slain in battle. Arvedui, who had married Ondoher's daughter Firiel, submits his claim to the throne as both Firiel's husband and a descendant of Earendil. Should this choice of the Dunedain of Gondor been to accept Arvedui, he would have changed his name and become king of a great realm. Unfortunately, the Council of Gondor rejected his claim, instead favoring Eärnil, a victorious general in battle and distant relative of Ondoher. Thus, Arvedui, whose name means last king, would be just that, the final king of what was once the great northern realm of Arnor. And as Malbeth foresaw, there would be much sorrow and many lives of men that would pass until, over 1,000 years later, Aragorn reunites the Dunedain. Now it is, I think, important to acknowledge that not everything we see characters predict in Tolkien should be considered prophecy. There's a difference between something being prophesied with foresight and someone merely giving a prediction based on their own knowledge or hope. Indeed, Tolkien says as much in The Nature of Middle-earth. Things may seem alike, but if they are in kind wholly different, they must be distinguished. Foresight, which is prevision, and forecasting, which is opinion made by reasoning upon present evidence, may be identical in their prediction, but they are wholly different in mode, and they should be distinguished by lore masters. There are many examples of things that perhaps fall under forecasting rather than foresight throughout the history of Middle-earth. Within The Lord of the Rings, we see Aragorn give Gandalf the ominous warning that he in particular should beware the passing of Moria. While this could be Aragorn getting some kind of foreboding foresight into Gandalf's fate against the Balrog, this is more likely his own prediction. Aragorn, after all, had previously gone to Moria, though we don't know what he did or saw there. Another example would be Bilbo's All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter poem about Aragorn, which concludes with the lines, "From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring, renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king." While this would indeed predict the reforging of the sword Andúril and Aragorn's ascension to king, these are events which Bilbo knew were in the making. Being a friend of Aragorn, Bilbo no doubt was aware that he carried the shards of Narsil, and that the ultimate goal was to reforge the sword and claim the kingship of Gondor and Arnor. So while it was a prediction that came true, it is not a prophecy. In a further footnote of Tolkien's from the same essay in Nature of Middle-earth, he tells us the true source of all prophecies. An incarnate can thus only know anything of the future by instruction derived from the Valar or by a revelation coming direct from Eru. But any mind, whether of the Valar or of the incarnate, may deduce by reason what will or may come to pass. This revelation casts an interesting light on things like the dreams of Faramir and Boromir, which led the latter to travel to Rivendell. Seek for the sword that was broken, in Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token, that doom is near at hand. For Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand. This dream is certainly prophetic in nature, and there's no way either of these Gondorians would have any knowledge of the events described. Indeed, Boromir only has a vague idea of where Imladris is located before he sets out. Given what we've heard from the professor on the topic, it seems that mortals can gain glimpses of the future either from the Valar or from Ilúvatar himself. Another great example, also from around the time of Malbeth the Seer, comes instead from an elf. After Arvedui's death and Gondor's reinforcements arrive in the north, the elf lord Glorfindel is alongside Eärnur as the Witch King retreats from the battlefield. Glorfindel stops the Gondorian captain, saying, "Do not pursue him, for he will not return to this land. Far off yet is his doom, and not by the hand of man will he fall." This of course refers to the far distant battle in which Éowyn, with the help of Merry, would slay the Witch King. But of course these premonitions are not limited to the works Tolkien published during his lifetime. Turning to the First Age, and even earlier, we find some of the most epic prophecies of all. One comes from another mortal man. In 472 of the First Age, as the disastrous Nirnaeth Arnoediad comes to a close, the Western armies attempt to escape. Most notable among these is Turgon, king of the hidden realm of Gondolin. In this moment, the mortal brothers Hurin and Huor lead their people to safeguard Turgon's escape from the orcs. Then Huor spoke and said, "Yet if it stands but a little while, then out of your house shall come the hope of elves and men. This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death. Though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell." In this moment before his death, Huor foresees the union of his son Tuor, who would be born a few months later, and Turgon's daughter, Idril. And from them would come a son, Eärendil, who after the defeat of Morgoth in the War of Wrath, would sail the skies with a Silmaril upon his brow, a newly arisen star. Also within the pages of the Silmarillion, we find the most famous being with foreknowledge aside from Ilúvatar himself, Mandos, the doomsman of the Valar. As we've covered in other videos, Mandos would proclaim a great prophecy called the Doom of Mandos, where he predicts many of the things that would befall the Noldor after their exile from Valinor. "Tears unnumbered ye shall shed, and the Valar will fence Valinor against you, and shut you out, so that not even the echo of your lamentation shall pass over the mountains. On the house of Feanor the wrath of the Valar lieth, from the west unto the uttermost east, and upon all that will follow them it shall be laid also. Their oath shall drive them, and yet betray them, and ever snatch away the very treasures that they have sworn to pursue. To evil end shall all things turn that they begin well, and by treason of kin unto kin, and the fear of treason shall this come to pass. The dispossessed shall they be forever. Ye have spilt the blood of your kindred unrighteously, and have stained the land of Aman. For blood ye shall render blood, and beyond Aman ye shall dwell in death's shadow. For though Eru appointed to you to die not in Ea, and no sickness may assail you, yet slain ye may be, and slain ye shall be. By weapon and by torment and by grief, and your houseless spirits shall come then to Mandos. There long shall ye abide and yearn for your bodies, and find little pity, though all whom ye have slain should entreat for you. And those that endure in Middle-earth and come not to Mandos shall grow weary of the world as with a great burden, and shall wane, and become as shadows of regret before the younger race that cometh after. The Valar have spoken. While it is his most known prophecy, it is not his only one. Indeed, the second prophecy of Mandos is of the end of days, the Dagor Dagorath, in which Morgoth will return for one final battle, and ultimately he will be slain by Tuor's cousin Turin, and the world, now free of the Dark Lord, will be remade. There are many more instances of Mandos revealing future events. He would declare the coming of the firstborn elves, that they would awake to only starlight, and ever after revere Varda because of it. He also sees things like that Feanor will soon die after leaving Valinor for Middle-earth, his spirit coming to the Doomsman's halls. Knowing what we know about the ability of both mortals and immortals alike to receive glimpses of foreknowledge, we can appreciate that there may very well be many more instances that cross the line from forecasting to foresight. For instance, after Gollum's attempted attack on the slopes of Mount Doom, Frodo declares, "Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom." While this could be seen as a simple threat, the accuracy and specificity of this command cannot be ignored. On a more tender yet connected note, we find Gandalf's words about Gollum. "Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it, and he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end. And when that comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, yours not least." Indeed, there are several more instances of foresight throughout the Legendarium. Feanor's foresight of death shows him no power of the Noldor will ever overthrow Thangorodrim. Melian's foresight leads her and Thingol to build their stronghold of Menegroth, and later she would predict the coming of Beren to her realm, for he was moved by a doom greater than her power. It was also foretold that Huan the Hound of Valinor would speak thrice before his death, which would not come until he had met the greatest werewolf to ever live. Gwyndor, the elf of Nargothrond, as he lay mortally wounded, foretold that should Turin save Princess Finduilas from the orcs, Turin would be saved from his curse. Sadly, he does not save Finduilas, and the curse of Morgoth would follow the doomed man. In the Second Age, Tar Palantir of Numenor foretold that should the White Tree perish, the line of the kings would come to an end. And sure enough, Ar-Pharazôn would be the last king of Numenor after he has the White Tree chopped down and burned. Later, Galadriel would predict the Grey Company joining Aragorn and the group taking the paths of the dead. And she also predicts the sea longing that awakens in Legolas's heart. And in one of my favorite Tolkien chapters, The Tale of Aragorn and Arwen found in Appendix A, we find Aragorn's maternal grandparents are both foresighted, leading them to debate the marriage of their daughter. "Arathorn is a man of full age, and will be chieftain sooner than men looked for. Yet my heart forebodes that he will be short-lived." But Eorwen, his wife, who was also foresighted, answered, "The more need of haste. The days are darkening before the storm, and great things are to come. If these two wed now, hope may be born for our people, but if they delay, it will not come while this age lasts." Throughout the ages of Middle-earth, we would see many instances of prophecy and foresight. While I've covered a great many here, there are surely more. So let me know in the comments what your favorite moment of foresight is, and any other prophecies not mentioned in this video. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.